Ever get this feeling like the more we learn about the human body, the more we realize we don't know?
Totally. It's like we're always just scratching the surface.
Right. And today we're going to really dig into one of those under the radar connections, the link between autism and skin conditions, even allergies. Like, who knew they were related?
There's one of those things that doesn't get talked about enough, which is why this deep dive is so important.
For sure. So we're looking at this article from Cheap ABA, and it's all about how people with autism seem to have more issues with their skin.
Yeah, exactly. Things like psoriasis, eczema, those kinds of conditions.
Okay, so before we get too deep, can we do a quick, explain it to me like I'm five on those? What makes them different from just like regular dry skin?
Okay, so imagine your immune system. It's like the security guard for your body, right?
Mm.
Protects you from the bad stuff.
Right, makes sense.
But sometimes that guard gets a little confused.
Yeah.
Instead of just fighting off germs and stuff, it starts attacking your body.
Oh no. Friendly fire.
Exactly. And with psoriasis, it's your skin cells that get attacked. That's what causes those red, itchy patches.
Ouch, yeah, I've seen pictures. It doesn't look fun. So it's not just dryness, it's like an internal battle happening.
You got it. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The article says that having autism actually makes you 2 to 3 times more likely to develop psoriasis.
Whoa, hold on. 2 to 3 times? That's a huge increase. Like, what's the deal with that?
So researchers think it might be because of, get this, shared genes. Basically, some of the same genes that make someone prone to autism might also make them prone to these immune system quirks.
Wow, so it's not just bad luck. It's like maybe written in your code from the start.
Potentially. It's still early in the research, but it's a strong possibility.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this actually, play out in real life? If you're a kid with autism who also has psoriasis, what's that like on a daily basis?
Well, imagine this. You're a kid who already has sensory sensitivities, like certain fabrics feel awful, or loud noises are almost painful. Now add in the intense itching, the burning, the just plain hurting of psoriasis on top of that.
Oh man, it's like everything's turned up to 11. I can see how that would be a recipe for like meltdowns, and not just for the kid, but for the whole family trying to cope.
Yeah, it can be really tough. And unfortunately, psoriasis isn't the only skin condition we're talking about here.
Right. The article also mentioned eczema, right? But isn't that like super common in kids anyway?
It is. But think of it this way. Eczema in kids with autism, it's often like turning up the volume on those symptoms.
More intense, longer lasting, that kind of thing.
Exactly. More frequent flare-ups, more intense itching, and a harder time finding relief. We're talking about kids who are already sensitive to things like touch and texture, and then you add this on top of it.
Oh man, it's like they can't catch a break. It makes you realize just how interconnected everything is? The immune system, the skin, even sensory processing. We can't just treat these things as separate issues.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's a perfect example of why it's so important to talk about these hidden connections. Because if we don't even know they're there, we can't even start to address them. It really is. And speaking of connections, this is where it gets even wilder, ready? The article also talks about how allergies are way more common in people with autism.
Wait, allergies, like food allergies, pollen, all that? I did not see that one coming.
Yeah, it's not just skin deep, unfortunately. The same way the immune system can go haywire with psoriasis and eczema, it can overreact to stuff that's usually harmless for most people.
So it's like your body's on high alert all the time, but it's pointing its weapons in the wrong direction.
Exactly. Instead of just being like, oh, some pollen, it's like, invasion! Sound the alarm! And bam, allergic reaction.
Okay, but why autism specifically? Is there something about how the brain works that messes with the immune system that much?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, the researchers are still trying to figure it out. But there's this one theory that's really interesting, ties back into what we were saying about senses.
You mean how some people with autism experience things more intensely, like smells are stronger or sounds are overwhelming?
Exactly. Now think about it. If your senses are already turned up compared to other people, an allergy trigger is going to hit you way harder, right?
Whoa! Like, I hate pollen as much as the next person, but if my sense of smell was amplified, I bet I'd be miserable.
Right. So it's not just that you're more likely to have allergies if you're autistic, is that they might be way worse because your whole sensory experience is different.
That's heavy stuff. And honestly, it makes you think about, the impact on people's lives, not just the science.
Totally.
Huh.
And thankfully, the cheap ABA article, it doesn't just throw facts at you. It talks about what this actually means for families.
Because knowing something's connected in a medical journal is one thing, but living it every day is another.
For sure. And they found that autistic kids who also have these conditions, whether it's the skin stuff, allergies, or both, they tend to report having a lower quality of life overall.
I mean, can you blame it's like, on top of everything else, they're dealing with this constant discomfort, the feeling of being different.
It's a lot. And that's not even considering the stress on the families. Imagine trying to navigate doctor's appointments, therapies, all that A&D, making sure your kid's environment isn't making their skin crawl or their allergies go nuts.
It's like a whole other layer of parenting on top of what's already a challenging job.
Yeah.
Makes you realize how important support is, not just for the person with autism, but for their whole family. It's a lot to take in, for sure. And I know we don't want to leave folks feeling overwhelmed. So what can families actually do about this? Like, if you've got a kid dealing with autism, Andy, these other issues, where do you even start?
Well, like we were saying earlier, knowledge is power, right? So
Yeah.
just knowing that these connections exist can be a huge relief for parents. They're not imagining things. Their kid isn't just extra sensitive. There could be something more going on.
Totally. Otherwise, it's like you're playing a video game, but nobody gave you the instruction manual.
Exactly. And the good news is, this cheap ABA article, it's not just about identifying the problem. They actually offer some solutions too. Big one, teamwork. Don't try to handle this alone.
So we're talking like doctors, therapists, maybe allergists too, all working together.
Yep. Everyone's got to be on the same page, sharing information, coming up with a plan that's tailored for that specific child.
Makes sense. Okay, but what about day-to-day stuff? Are there things families can do at home to, like, manage these issues?
Absolutely. We talked about sensory overload earlier, right? That's a huge EE. Creating a calm, sensory-friendly environment at home can make a world of difference.
So dimming the lights, keeping things quiet, that kind of thing. Does it really make that much of an impact?
More than you'd think. Less sensory overload often equals fewer skin flare-ups, less itching, less overall stress for everyone. It's a win-win.
Right, got to tackle it from all angles. Now, what about the skin itself? Any, like, magic lotions or potions we should know about?
No magic potions, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But seriously, skincare is healthcare, especially for these kids. Gentle, fragrance-free soaps, thick moisturizers, avoiding harsh chemicals, it makes a huge difference. They even talk about weighted blankets and clothing in the article.
Weighted blankets, how does that help?
It's all about that sensory input. That gentle pressure can be really soothing, might even help cut down on scratching during flare-ups.
Interesting. It's like you got to get creative sometimes, think outside the box. But beyond the practical stuff, I think back to what you said about support. It's not just about doctors and routines, right? Families need emotional support too.
100%. And honestly, sometimes the best support comes from other families going through the same thing.
Like finding your people, realizing you're not alone in this crazy journey.
Exactly. Online forums, support groups, they can be lifesavers. Sharing tips, venting frustrations, celebrating victories, it makes a world of difference.
I love that. Finding the community, finding the resources. This whole deep dive has really highlighted how much we still don't know about autism, but also how much hope there is.
Absolutely. The more we understand, the better we can support individuals with autism and their families. And that's what it's all about, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, folks, that's our deep dive for today. We've covered a lot of ground, but hopefully you're walking away feeling informed, maybe a little empowered, and definitely not alone. Remember, keep asking questions, keep having those conversations, and keep advocating for yourselves and your loved ones. Until next time.